It's a kind of rambling story, but began with a lot of recent stories in COVID times, when I left my job and moved to Hendon to help my daughter with her 4 children, 2 adults working from home in a tiny house. And I thought, with her, we thought, well, I'll rent a house for 6 months, which I did, and see if we got on with each other. 5 years later, I'm still here. I bought a house. I live in West Hendon. I'm a resident. And I got into volunteering because in those COVID times, there was such a lot of need of one type or another. And I was looking for a role that was very flexible, because with 4 children, I had to take them to and from school and blah, blah, blah. And I originally trained to be a funeral celebrant. And then I realised that you have to actually show up to a funeral at a designated day and time, which isn't flexible. But the next best thing, which took me into volunteering, was St Luke's Hospice, looking for bereavement support people. So that's what I've been doing, well, nearly 4 years now. And that's very flexible, and it's online, I mostly do, but I also do a monthly walk and talk with them around the local area park. So that's how I got into it. And then it's kind of burgeoned. I do several volunteering jobs now. Well, the West Hendon Carnival, that is, well, the West Hendon, it was called the West Hendon Arts and Culture Society. And that started in, I think, 2022, when the new Labour council came in. Because one of the councillors in West Hendon Ward, Councillor Naomi Stanford, was canvassing before the election, and he came and knocked on my door, and somehow we got into conversation. And then in my street, Goldsmith Avenue, there was a little fly tip area, and I got completely exasperated with the fly tipping. And I put a note on next door saying, will anyone help me convert it into a community garden? And somewhere in this conversation with Ernest, Councillor Amber, I told him this story, and he went to look at the garden, and it's still going. And then when they got elected, a couple of months later, he contacted me. And he said, you'd be great at helping do a carnival. I said, I've never done a carnival. I've no idea. I'm not an events person. He said, well, I'll introduce you to lots of other people who in the area. I guess he meant canvassing, and you can go ahead with them. Anyway, so that's how the thing first came about. It was actually that councillor Ernest Amber who put this group of people together. And in that first year, we had a professional project manager, which is really good because none of us had the faintest idea how to do it. But it also meant that we could start thinking about other things in that area of West Hendon, because there is a little community hub. There's a very, very good yoga, meditation, arts teacher, Lisa Ellis, who I work very closely with now, and we do the carnival together with a couple of other people. And there was a nice nucleus of stuff that we could build on. And I think partly because I spent my life in massive organisations trying to get people to talk to each other and communicate. I had a lot of the skills that were complementary to Lisa's and Astrid's skills and Shiv's skills, who I work with now. So together we put on the second one by ourselves, and now we're doing the third one by ourselves. But we keep saying we'll never do it again. It's really hard work. And we're all volunteers, doing it. I guess because West Hendon needs that sort of thing. It's a very difficult area in many respects. I do the St Luke's volunteering. I also do the school gardening at the Hyde School where my grandchildren go, which is terrific fun. And I do volunteering with the Cursler Arts, which is a prisoner arts foundation, which is in Ealing. And that's very, very interesting, and it is slightly complementary to the arts and wellness stuff, because some of the ideas that the prisoner art generates can feed into local artwork that we're doing here. So that's another thing I do, and I have the community garden that I mentioned, and I'm in the throes of becoming a night stop host for young people who need emergency accommodation over for whatever reason, which is also problematic because the homelessness is just burgeoning all over the place, and the young people are particularly vulnerable, I think. So that's trundling through. But the bulk of my stuff has been with the West End community. Well, the festival and then Black History Month, we've just done a India South Asian Heritage Month event, and we did with the London Festival of Architecture, the Voices of West Hendon, which were incredibly interesting. A massive range of different voices, and a couple of people said you can't put that voice in. And I said, this is Voices of West Hendon, we've got to listen to the voices. And so that was really lovely. Well, that's a really good question, and you sent questions in advance. I was thinking about some of them because the Cursler Art, they have a coffee cup like all organisations do with their tagline on it. But their tagline is unlocking the talent within, which obviously refers to prisoners, or people in secure accommodation establishments. When I look at that, unlocking the talent within, you see that everywhere if you're looking for it. Or even if you're not looking for it, it suddenly appears in front of you. And there's people in West Hendon, and some of the voices of West Hendon and the artwork, and the work that Lisa does with both the art and the meditation. You see just people who you wouldn't really notice, and then they have this massive talent in all sorts of different ways, not just artistic, but in getting on with people, or generating community, or looking after cats, whatever it is, very, very different things. And I think that's so refreshing, because in media circles, people get lumped into categories. They're not individualised. It's a bit like being an older person like me. And they just get lumped into invisible, or that's a granny, and then all the stereotypes of it. But if you actually start to ask and listen to the people, you hear the most wonderful stories of their lives, and that's what I found so lovely in all of the volunteering work I do. And even the children, who are very young, they still have wonderful stories in their lives. And my dad grew a tomato, and it's just so exciting. Well, that was the question that gave me the most pause for reflection, because it's a very difficult question to feel proud of. And then I thought, how in big organisations you have performance reviews. So I was thinking, God, and then a lot of people have, through the course of my career, have said that I've got rather a gruff, direct manner, so how do you put that? One of the things that volunteering does is you have to stop and listen, and it's not rushed a lot, in the same way that being in a business world or an organisational world is a kind of constant thing. The volunteering is, you have time to listen, and I guess the thing I feel most proud of is actually being able to generate my own ability to listen and to stop and to think and to value what's going on, rather than thinking must get through the next 100 emails or whatever it was that I was trying to do when I was, in a full-time, highly busy job. That I think I'm most proud of that, because people say you don't change, but I think I have changed through volunteering, that I can actually listen, and I do recognise that people have different stories and very different responses to things, and if you start to ask them why, not in one of my direct blunt ways, how is it you're thinking like that, they come up with the reasons. They know why they do things which might appear mysterious to other people, but to them is perfectly understandable. I love that sort of listen. That was the thing I sort of thought about the most. And then the small things make a big difference. And if you saw the tiny community garden, it is a car parking space, but it's sort of rather vulnerable because it's not open on both sides, so people can but it's on the face of the street. People can just toss stuff into it. And every time you walk past, if I'm watering or putting stuff in, or one of the team is, people say this is just so lovely, and it used to be a fly tip, and they remember it, and it's just so nice, because even though it's small, it's making a massive difference. And then the great thing about that was someone else copied it, which was on the other side of the estate, and you think, you can get things kind of easier for people.